Today we're going to talk about North Africa. So we're going to look at these countries that are colored on here. So we have Western Sahara here, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt. Okay, so this is the region we're talking about today. All right, here we go. So the people. So the indigenous cultures have been influenced by European and Arab cultures, mostly because the Europeans, the Roman Empire in particular, conquered much of North Africa, and then all of it really, and then the Arab Empire is going to come through a few centuries later and conquer it as well, and so there's going to be a lot of outside influence. So the indigenous peoples are known as Berbers, okay? And these guys are mostly farmers, but previously they were pastoral nomads. And I'm going to talk about this with the Bedouins because they're nomadic as well. But what they would do is they are mostly herders, and they would take their cattle, usually camels, goats, and things like that, and they would just go from like oasis to oasis because North Africa is a lot of desert. Okay, so they would go from oasis to oasis. The other principal ethnic group is the Arab people. So if you speak Arabic, you're considered Arab. So it's not necessarily anymore that you are from the Arabian Peninsula, which is where Saudi Arabia is today. But so anyway, Arab people are united by language, so they all speak Arabic. So these nomadic Bedouins, this is a picture here of a Bedouin. They speak Arabic, and they came in from the Middle East to North Africa, and just like the Berbers did previously, they herd animals in the desert, going from usually oasis to oasis. Especially in Egypt, they have a pretty large Bedouin population there. But they have had continuous contact. North Africa has had continuous contact with Europe since the Roman Empire. So since the what are called the Punic Wars, where the Romans and Carthage, which is in present day Tunisia, they had quite a few battles. So early peoples and civilizations. So hunters and gatherers originally settled in North Africa by the end of the last ice age, so about 10,000 years ago. And the first major civilization that comes up is the Egyptian. So they're in on the Nile Valley. Okay, it's very fertile. Once a year it floods, and then when it recedes, it leaves behind very fertile soil. And they were able to use sophisticated irrigation systems, so farmers could actually grow 2 crops a year. So they were able to produce more food than they could previously. They also developed a calendar that had a 365-day year, and they built pyramids as tombs for their rulers. So this is a picture of that here. So you see this is the Sphinx, obviously, and then you see the pyramids in the back. In addition, they invented hieroglyphics, so that's represented in this picture, and you can see it in this as well. And that's a form of picture writing. In this picture here, you can see that's Anubis, and he is performing mummification. Okay, so that was another thing that the Egyptians did, was they mummified their dead. This right here is a map showing you the different settlements of the Egyptian Empire. So this up here is known as Lower Egypt, and this here is known as Upper Egypt. And it looks backwards because that's the way the map goes, but the Nile flows north, okay? So it's one of the few rivers that flows north, and because of that, this seems lower than this, okay? And then the Mediterranean Sea flows into that. So this right here is called the Nile River Delta. Okay. In the 7th century, they're going to see invasions from the Arabs that are going to heavily influence North Africa. And then the Berbers are actually going to join in with the Arabs, and they're going to assimilate to their culture. And so they're going to adopt Islam as one of the things they're going to do. And so Islam, the religion, is going to be very, very prevalent in North Africa. But after brief Vandal and Byzantine invasions, basically Arab rule was established, and then it's going to be ruled by Arabs, well, the Turks, I guess, Muslims, until 1922, when the Ottoman Empire finally falls. This right here shows the extent of Arab rule. So this is the conquest of Muhammad. Remember, he is the founder of Islam, and then after that, different caliphs gained more and more land. So this is the extent here. So from Iran all the way to Spain is where the Arab Empire went. In the 1400s, Muslim and Jewish exiles fleeing Christian persecution in Spain infused Morocco with Spanish culture. So Morocco is a little bit different culturally than the rest of North Africa because of that. So they have a lot of Spanish influence on them. Okay, in the mid 1800s, the European colonial rule really affected North Africa. So this is when we'll talk about this a lot in the next unit as well. But in the 1800s, Europeans basically carved up Africa and just took what they could. So, for example, the French just took Algeria, and so they started to create geometric boundaries. So geometric boundaries are just straight lines. They don't really account for any natural boundaries, cultural features. They're just lines. They said, the French said, we want this land, and then the British said, we want this land, and they said, okay, and they drew a line, and they said, we get this side, you get that side. And so there's a lot of conflicts as a result. Local practices in government are not necessarily the same as the Europeans, and so there's been a lot of conflict as a result of that. A well-educated urban middle class has developed in more recent years, and they were trained in European ways, so they adopted nationalism, and so this is going to stir demands for more self-rule, and so this is going to help some of these countries to start to gain independence. Okay, so this right here is kind of the breakup of Africa in general. So you can see that there's only two places here. This is Ethiopia, this is Liberia that actually remain free. But everything else, see all this green here, this was controlled by the French. So Spanish had a little bit of Morocco, and then the French controlled this. They controlled Algeria, Tunisia. Italy primarily controlled Libya. This, at the time, all of this was considered Egypt here. So the British controlled that. Now today, these, excuse me, these are the more modern boundaries here. So you can see this is Morocco here. This is Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, all the way over to here, and then this is Egypt over here. So Egypt was gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1922. One of the things that really helped Egypt is because they have the Suez Canal. So I'm going to go back to this and show you this. So this right here is the Red Sea, and this connects to land here. This is called the Sinai Peninsula, but this is connected to land. But the Suez Canal goes right through here. So it connects the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea right here. So it makes it much easier so you don't have to go all the way around the continent to get to Asia. So they could just cut right through here. Okay? So because of that, it's very, very lucrative. Okay? So Egypt has gained a lot of wealth as a result of that. Algeria is going to gain independence from France in 1962, and they're going to develop its own resources and increase their standard of living. Libya will gain independence in 1951 from Italy, but in 1969, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, that's this guy right here, he is going to overthrow the monarchy. Now, he was assassinated in 2011 by some revolutionaries, and they have really not, in Libya, they have not had a very stable government at all since 2011. And then Tunisia and Morocco gained independence in 1956 from France, and Morocco today is a constitutional monarchy. So culture, so religion and language. So the Arabs brought Islam to the region. Most of the people in North Africa are of the Sunni sect of Islam. They believe leadership should be in the hands of the Islamic community at large. Now, most of the Berbers have converted to Islam, though some do still practice some of their indigenous religions. But as Islam spreads, so does Arabic. So the Quran is written in Arabic, so non-Arab Muslims have to learn it in order to study the Quran. Education and healthcare. So primary education is free, but literacy rates range from 52%, which is really low in Morocco, to 82%, which is pretty good in Libya. Healthcare has improved a lot. People go to the government-owned hospitals, but there's a lot of doctor shortages and rationing of care, just like in every other government-owned hospital that we've talked about. That happens everywhere all around the world. If the government controls the healthcare, that's when you see that rationing of care and shortages. Okay, that's all I got for today. Don't forget to do your processor. Have a good day.